Former Defense Department Chief of Staff, former prosecutor, MAGA warrior, and the legendary Kash Patel. Do you like that, Kash? I'm making you sound like Muhammad Ali. I just love it. All right. Along with former chief counsel for nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee, former Supreme Court clerk, Article 3 project founder, the brilliant Mike Davis. He's a legal eagle, folks. All right, so let's get right down to this because so much is going on. We've been hearing all these reports that, an indictment, another one, right? It's like Groundhog Day, is imminent with this whole Jack Smith situation. There's a lot to get to. Kash, I'm going to go to you first. You have a column out, which I found to be quite interesting, on Real Clear Politics called The Two Tiers of Justice. So lay out for the viewers, just so we can get this started, just what is happening here and how sick and twisted this whole thing is, this persecution.
Well, KG, as always, great to be with you, and Mike, great to be with you as well. Look, I've spent a career in government, 16 years, Democrats and Republicans, and I've never seen the weaponization like I have when Donald Trump and his allies are the target. What do you mean by that? 6 years ago, it was a right-wing conspiracy when I dared to investigate Russiagate. But all roads lead back to Russiagate because the same co-conspirators at the FBI and DOJ and the folks in the media are the same ones running the same operation over and over. How does that happen? The only way it can happen is if you create a two-tier system of justice where certain Americans are treated one way and others are treated based on the law and the fact. It should only be a singular system. And let me highlight for you the example that I think is coming. Rewind the tape when the Justice Department and James Comey said Hillary Clinton would not be charged with disclosing national defense information, whether it was classified or not is irrelevant, because they gave her literally a pass because she was running for presidency of the United States and they wanted her to win. I suspect because Donald Trump and his team, and I was in the grand jury, went out there and told the truth. The president has uniform declassification authority, sole authority, period. So I think they're going to levy a national defense information charge against him. But isn't it ironic that they're going to a grand jury to indict Donald Trump on the very act that Hillary Clinton was actually guilty for, when President Trump has the Presidential Records Act and the declassification authority, unlike Hillary Clinton? That is a two-tier system of justice at play. We've seen it with the 51 Intel letter. We've seen it with Russiagate. We've seen it with the sham Jan 6 committee, and it never ends. It's just going to keep being repeated over and over again for one purpose: to rig an election. And that's why we must destroy it and send Donald Trump back to the White House.
It's really true because that's what they did last time, right? They did this and stole the election as well by, in fact, ignoring the Hunter Biden laptop, doing the whole Russiagate investigate. It's one thing after the next. They're doing it again. It's the same playbook, but quite frankly, because they think it worked, well the last time. So, Mike, I want to get to into the legal weeds of all of this. What statutes do you think we're looking at, and what do you think of this case? How strong do you think it is? How weak? Lay it out.
Well, here's the deal. I think Kash is right. They're going to try to charge President Trump under a version of the Espionage Act that does not apply to a president or former president's handling of his presidential records. They're going to ignore the Presidential Records Act. And the Presidential Records Act is very clear that any documents created or received by the president or his White House staff is a presidential record. He's allowed to take those presidential records when he leaves office, and it does not matter whether they're classified or not. That's why Congress gives former presidents the office of the former president with secure office space, with staff with security clearances and secret service protection. These documents never leaked for 18 months until Biden sent the FBI to do this illegal, unconstitutional, unprecedented home raid from a biased magistrate judge who had just recused 6 weeks prior to get back these documents. And we all know what this is all about. This is to get Trump's declassified via presidential memo crossfire hurricane records that are so damning. We saw the Durham report with the unclassified records. Just imagine what's in the classified records.
It's unbelievable. But, they've obviously been working at this for quite some time. It's, several different entities and individuals acting in concert, all for the specific purpose of taking down Donald Trump. They will do anything to make sure that he does not get in office again in 2024. I think everyone's seeing this now because it's insane and it's relentless and it's all, amounts to no facts or evidence, but just weaponizing things. So Kash, we're crossing kind of a Rubicon here, right? So Garland is protecting Biden. We can all agree on that. They're using lawfare, right, to try and destroy Trump. Congressional oversight authority is sort of, quite frankly, our only and last and best option against a total destruction of justice here. What would your strategy be for the oversight committee, going forward to try to do something to combat this?
Yeah, look what we did at Russiagate. And look, let me just set this in motion for you. The FBI's director, the top cop at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Chris Wray, lied to a United States Senator, Chuck Grassley, and said this document does not exist. He flat out lied about it. Then when a brave whistleblower came forward and said, not only does this document exist, but multiple do, Chris Wray backtracked his lie and then refused to produce it. And then Chairman Comer, rightly so, issued a subpoena and threatened contempt. But here's the thing. It's not about wins and losses in Congress. People are parading around how we successfully won to get 3 documents out. It's a loss. What about all the other documents they're hiding related to this? We're now finding out, thanks to John Solomon and company, that this source reporting about Biden's pay-for-play corruption bribery goes back to 2017. And guess what? The FBI never leaked that because of a presidential election. And now Chris Wray did another crime. He actually went out to the media, like they always do, and they told the world another lie. That Chairman Comer and Grassley were lying to you about this source and its existence, and the documentation and the evidence doesn't exist. And so Chairman Comer doubled down, thankfully, issued the subpoena and stood his ground. Now they got to get that document out to the whole world, and not just that one, every single one. And one last thing on sources, the FBI Confidential Human Source Corruption Cover-Up Network. That's what I call it. When we subpoena Chris Steele, Devin and I, and his cohorts at the FBI, what did they tell us? The world was going to end. Steele was going to die. Britain and America's relationship was going to be ruined because of you, Kash and Devin. You know what happened? We exposed the biggest crime syndicate the FBI's ever had. And I think Comer's sitting over the target on the same thing. That's why they don't want you to hear from this target. Don't believe for a second they can't protect this source. It's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Of course they can.
You're absolutely right. And good on you for calling him out on it, because it's absolutely ridiculous. It is an insulting excuse and fabrication, quite frankly. Mike, you also tweeted, little confidence Trump will get a fair trial, especially not in D.C. The Supreme Court will have to fix this. Call the fixer. Can you explain more about that scintillating tweet, and what specific issue could be litigated at the Supreme Court? Because I think everybody, literally I get calls from friends and they're like, oh, it's going to have to be the higher courts. The higher courts are going to have to fix this. And from, big donors, supporters of the president. Tell us how you think it could play out.
Well, I worry that Trump will not get a fair hearing in D.C. or Miami. He'll get a more fair hearing in Miami if they bring the charges in the Southern District of Florida instead of D.C. D.C. is 95% Democrat and 99.9% Trump deranged. I might be the only Trump supporter in Washington, D.C., and I spend 90% of my time in Denver. So I can assure you Trump will not get
You're lone survivor over there, let me tell you. I don't even know.
Right.
Good luck.
That's right. He's not going to get a fair hearing in D.C. He's not going to get a fair judge. He's not going to get a fair jury, and he's not going to get a fair appeal at the D.C. Circuit, which is controlled by Obama judges and weaklings on the Republican side. So this will have to get resolved by the Supreme Court eventually. I hope it's resolved before it goes to a trial. Maybe a motion to dismiss the indictment, but I fear that it's going to go on appeal to the Supreme Court down the road, where you could have a convicted Donald Trump who wins back the White House, which maybe he can go in and appeal to the Supreme Court or just pardon himself. Here's the problem. The courts, the National Security Division, the Biden Justice Department, Jack Smith, they are misrepresenting the law to the courts. The Presidential Records Act controls a president and former president's handling of his presidential records, not the Espionage Act. They know it, but they are continuing to make those misrepresentations.
Well, I mean, that's a malicious prosecution right there. I mean, to me, it just flies in the face. Like a first-year law student could figure that out and say, yeah, this doesn't, fit. Like, I don't understand. I mean, it's so obvious and so egregious that this can even be happening. And they know that he didn't do anything wrong, but they're nevertheless insisting and force feeding and shape shifting something that doesn't apply to him. And instead of looking at the law that's clear and solid on the books, because that should totally exonerate him right there. And by the way, how do you justify the difference between what they're doing to President Trump and not even pursuing this whatsoever against President Biden? How?
That's the issue. The whole reason we're hearing about Jack Smith right now is because Biden got caught with a $5 million bribe from Burisma when he was the vice president of the United States, where he threatened to cut off $1 billion in funding to Ukraine if the Ukrainian president didn't fire this prosecutor investigating Burisma and his own family. That's what Joe Biden should be impeached for this. That's why
literally it's like time for impeachment. I'm like waiting for the countdown. I'm like, what's happening? Someone tell me their Apple Watch is notifying that he's getting impeached, because this makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and it also makes no sense that Joe Biden had 5 stashes of stolen classified records from President Obama and even the Senate, unguarded for years, moved several times, and there's evidence he used these records to get Ukrainian funding in a 22-point memo that Hunter put away the crack pipe and decided that he was a Ukraine geopolitical expert. There is no chance that they didn't use these stolen classified records in Ukraine. And remember this sweetheart deal that Garland had with Biden. When they're going after Trump with the FBI raid, they let Biden secretly gather records. His own attorneys gather records. 4 different sets they turned in. The attorneys had to have represented. They turned over everything. Garland gets caught, appoints special counsel Rob Hur. FBI goes in and finds the fifth set of stolen classified documents. How is that not obstruction of justice, right?
No,
How did his not misrepresent that to the Biden Justice Department?
It's outrageous. Cash, I'll give you a comment on that, and I have another question for you.
Yeah, look, it's the full, complete 360-degree circle of the 2-tier system of justice. It's not just in the court system. It's in the intel community. It's in the legislative branch. And as Mike highlighted, it's in the judiciary. Now you know you can't get a fair trial. But when you put all of this together, when you wind the tape back to 2015 and 16, and we said Russiagate was real and the FBI broke the law and unlawfully surveilled Trump, that's not a conspiracy anymore. And what Donald Trump says today is truer than ever. They're after us. I'm just in the way. And now people are stitching together the fact that you have been credibly reporting over a time of 6 years that no more conspiracies. The FBI has lied over and over again. And every time they tell you it's a source issue, it's a corruption cover-up. And every time the DOJ says we're going to prosecute you based on the facts and the law, you know that's a complete ruse, as Mike just laid out. So the only way to destroy this is to actually, unfortunately, take it to the max. And that might require President Trump being charged with this federal offense, because otherwise people aren't going to pay attention. Remember, the Durham report even had CNN saying the FBI is now devastated. So that was a monster win for President Trump. He was completely exonerated. It only took 6 years. And I hope, like Mike said, they move faster with interlocutory appeals and get this thing done soon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the problem with all of this. But I mean, they don't want to. They want to drag it out. You know, they want to age the case, drag it out. Past 2024, so that it hurts the president, or they try to hurt him with this, and that people will say, whoa, we're worried about the general election. This is a lot of baggage. This is a lot of craziness going on. We're worried about this. Can we win again? Everyone knows Trump's going to be the nominee, okay? Let's just fast forward to that, all right? I called the Psychic Friends Network. I got it on a good tip. That's happening, okay? So in the meantime, everyone else is just going to waste our time and money and resources that we need to be focused on the general election, because they've already got their playbook of what they're going to do. They'll be let them all kill each other, spend all their money, lack focus on the general election so that they can, retain the White House. So, all right, Cash, talk about this, in fact, the political implications. How does this affect, in your opinion, the primary and ultimately Trump in 2024?
Well, look, I'll get to Trump in a second. I still think Hillary Clinton's going to jump in the race. They don't want Biden.
You keep scaring me with this. I don't know. I'm going to sleep with the lights on, or my head under the covers.
They don't want him to run, and they'll eventually charge Hunter with some Mickey Mouse plea deal to say the system of justice is universal and all this. But that's the political cover-up that you're talking about. And you're right. I completely agree, as Trump's senior advisor, that he's going to be the nominee. But what they're trying to do
well,
is
you
what they
agree
try
whether you're a senior advisor or not.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
No,
because that's the common sense about who's going to be the nominee. When you look at the polls, you look at the facts, you look at the experience, you look at the base.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not even the political guy. I'm the national security defense intel guy. And I'm telling you, it's going to be him because he literally kicked ass for America on all those fronts. The border, China, drugs, trafficking, Iran, Russia, getting us out of forever wars, taking on the international stage to make sure that the U.S. put America first. What is wrong with that? And people are now seeing that Joe Biden's agenda is very simple. What did Donald Trump do? I'm going to do the opposite. People thought I was kidding when I said that 2 years ago, and that's literally what he continues to do. So when you extend that out politically, I think everyday Americans are starting to see, well, it doesn't matter whether I like or dislike someone. It matters whether or not my kids can eat and go down to the street to the schoolhouse and not be shot or take a gummy that's full of Chinese fentanyl. Poison. Those things are resonating across the country because Joe Biden is allowing them to happen. So he's a clear front runner by a country mile on the Republican side. I just don't think Joe Biden is going to end up being the nominee on the Democratic side.
But you still really seriously think it's going to be Hillary Clinton? Do you know something we don't know? Is Hillary going to off Biden or trip him going up the stairs? Not going to be that hard.
You never know the power of the Clinton crime syndicate. You never know.
Oh my God, it's so true. I mean, it's like kind of funny, but it's funny because it's so accurate. All right, Mike, we've got one for you here. So shed a little bit more light, because everyone's like hearing this name, you know, Jack Smith, the special counsel. Tell us about the devil's advocate. Who is this guy and what are his ties to Democrats?
So he is Garland's handpicked special counsel. And people need to understand that if there is an indictment against Trump and a no indictment against Biden, that is a decision that is made by Merrick Garland. He can try to hide behind a special counsel all he wants, but this is a decision that's made by Merrick Garland. But let's look at Jack Smith, this special counsel who was hired to go after Trump. In 2010, Eric Holder appointed Jack Smith ahead of the public integrity section at the Justice Department. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially, it's a career job, but it's essentially a very political job. So he gets this job. He was implicated in the Lois Lerner scandal, of course. In 2014, Jack Smith indicted Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. He got a conviction against this guy and took him out of the presidential contention, and the Supreme Court reversed him 8-0. And it would have been 9-0, but Justice Scalia passed away in the process. Jack Smith's wife produced a documentary on the donors and donated $2,000 to Joe Biden in 2020. So there you go.
My gosh,
wow.
You know, it's just so biased. It's so biased and outrageous, you know, and as a former prosecutor, I hate this because, you know, I took an oath of office. I took it very seriously. I wish they would do the same because this is a total miscarriage of justice. All right, Cash, so this all ties back to, you know, the Russiagate playbook, right? Weaponize, you know, justice to cover up their own wrongdoing. What role do you think the Crossfire Hurricane documents are playing in this particular case? And is this why the government has been literally trying to like stop the release of your book, Government Gangsters? I'm not even kidding you. I think this is all tied in.
Well, look, I've always said all roads lead back to Russiagate. And people thought I was looking for a catchy kick line. And I'm like, no, that's not it. It's the same people at the FBI. Comey might not be there, but his minions are still there, and Wray has just replaced them. It's the same people at DOJ. The lead person at DOJ running this, Lisa Monaco, was the lead oversighter at DOJ with John Carling when Russiagate was launched. They're the number 2 and 3 there. They are in charge. And so when I say all roads lead back to Russiagate, this might floor you, KG. I don't think I've told you this. Devin and I got out 60% of the documents from Russiagate. 60%. Wow. Then Congress flipped and Adam Schiff buried them in a wormhole, and Donald Trump bravely decided to declassify them. And oh, what do you see this week? A letter signed by President Trump saying, I'm declassifying everything. That letter nukes the entire special counsel's case on President Trump. They could have produced it when I was in the grand jury. Right. That would have been nice. And without getting into details about what I did in the grand jury other than tell the truth. But this is the scam they're running. These same operators at the FBI are playing this book because, and Mike's right. I know what's in those documents. Devin knows what's in those documents. That's about it. And there's a reason they don't want the world to see the extent of the corruption. It doesn't just go to the FBI, it goes to the IC. It goes to classified leaks to the media. It goes to taxpayer-funded sources to the tune of millions of dollars and programs at the DOD involved in Russiagate. And all of that is in those documents, and they don't want it out. And there's a reason for that. And my book, actually, there's an announcement. I won. I sued the government after 8 months. My manuscript was finally released yesterday by the DOD. And get this, 8 redactions, less than 12 words. That's what they spent 8 months redacting. We're going to go to print and hopefully get it out this summer, but pre-order at governmentgangsters.com. These people will do anything to bootstrap
Literally.
Donald Trump, his supporters, and American citizens. And this is how I make my livelihood, but they don't give a damn. And that's what's wrong with these people. These Russiagate documents have to get out.
I love this. Cash fought the law and cash won. I love it. All right, well, good. We cannot wait. That is so exciting. That's a big victory. So fantastic. Good one for the good guys and for truth.